She stepped onto the wooden planks of Main Street, boots crunching over the dry dirt. The sun hung low, casting long shadows that stretched across the storefronts. "Look at her dress," a woman whispered, nudging her companion. "Doesn't she know it's torn?" Her eyes dropped to the frayed hem, cheeks heating. "She's come from nowhere," a man muttered, smirking behind the counter of the general store. "Funny walk, too," a child called, twirling a stick. "Like a scarecrow." Laughter followed. She pressed her lips together, gripping the strap of her bag. "Easy there," said a soft, steady voice from a distance. He leaned against the fence near the hitching post, hat tipped low. The cowboy's horse stamped its hooves, kicking up dust. His eyes didn't judge. They just watched. I need some flour," she said, voice barely audible. She stepped toward the store. The shopkeeper snorted. "You think you belong here?
Ha!
You're just a mess." Her hands trembled as she placed a few coins on the counter. The laughter rolled over her again. She looked down at the floorboards, ashamed. "Don't mind them," the cowboy murmured, though she could only hear him faintly. "Just keep walking." A group of boys ran past, knocking her shoulder. "Watch it, Scarecrow." One of them spat on the dusty street, laughing. She flinched, wiping the dirt from her sleeve. "Why do they hate me so?" she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. The words caught in her throat, swallowed by the warm wind that stirred the loose straw on the sidewalks. "Because cruelty's easier than kindness," the cowboy replied, stepping closer now. His shadow fell across the sunlit boards. "But that don't make it right." "Then why me?" Her voice shook. She tried to keep it steady, but the sting in her eyes betrayed her. "They pick on anyone standing alone," he said, his gaze fixed on her hands. "But standing alone don't mean you're lost." She glanced at him, uncertain. The quiet calm in his eyes contrasted the sharpness of the town. Dust clung to her hair and dress. She wanted to disappear into it. A woman in a bonnet called out, loud enough for all to hear. "She's an odd one. Look at that hair." More laughter erupted. Her knees threatened to buckle, and she gripped the edge of the counter for support. "Ignore them," he said, taking a slow step closer, hands in his pockets. "Ain't nothing they say that changes who you are." The children pointed, giggling as she hurried past the general store, clutching her bag tightly. "Scarecrow. Scarecrow." Their voices followed her down the street, bouncing off the clapboard buildings. She stopped near the hitching post, panting slightly. The town seemed to close in around her, the windows and doors filled with watching eyes. She could feel the weight of their judgment pressing on her shoulders, heavier than the dust on her boots. "You'll find a place," the cowboy said gently, tilting his hat back just enough for sunlight to hit his face. "Maybe not here, but somewhere better. Don't let them steal what's yours." She lifted her gaze, meeting his calm eyes for a brief moment. Something unspoken passed between them, a promise that not all were cruel, that safety could exist somewhere, even in the shadow of this town. A breeze rattled the signs above the shops, carrying the faint scent of hay from the outskirts. She realized she had nowhere else to go tonight, and the sun sank further, bleeding red across the horizon. Her heart ached, lonely and heavy, but the cowboy's presence offered the faintest trace of hope. The whisper of the town lingered in the air as she took a hesitant step toward the outskirts. Tomorrow would bring the public event, the one she feared most, but for now, she clutched the small bundle of courage the cowboy had given her, invisible but real, and walked into the growing shadows. "Miss Hartley, you'll explain the matter with the supplies," the town clerk called, voice echoing across the wooden hall. She stepped forward, clutching the papers, hands trembling. "The shipment arrived late, sir, and the barrels are missing." "Oh, look at that dress," the mistress interrupted, rising from her chair with a sharp smile. "Frayed, dusty, and far too tight. Do you even know how to walk properly?" Laughter erupted. Her cheeks burned. I only want to report the delivery," she said softly. "Softly?" the mistress scoffed. "Softly won't cut it here, girl. Speak clearly." Speak, like someone who belongs. I belong. I belong, she stuttered, voice breaking. Her eyes flicked toward the benches filled with townsfolk, all staring, whispering, smirking. Perhaps she belongs somewhere else, muttered a man near the back, chuckling. Anywhere but here. She swallowed hard, the papers shaking in her grip. A ripple of laughter washed over her. Children giggled, copying her stiff posture. One boy whispered, "Scarecrow lady." The sound stung, sharper than any whip. From the doorway, the cowboy's hat brim appeared. He stepped quietly, leaving a shawl folded on a nearby chair. He said nothing, only nodded toward it. Her fingers reached for it, feeling the soft fabric. Thank you," she whispered, brushing it around her arms. Warmth spread through her chest despite the cold sting of shame. "You really think that will help?" sneered the mistress. "A shawl? You'll still trip over your own feet, girl." I can manage," she replied, forcing her voice to stay steady. "Manage? Look at her hands, shaking like leaves," someone muttered from the back. The murmurs grew louder, echoing against the wooden beams. "Perhaps the town's better off without her speaking at all," another added. "She can't even stand straight." Her stomach twisted. She wanted to vanish, melt into the polished floorboards. Her tongue felt heavy, but she raised her chin. "The barrels, there were 10 missing from the shipment. That is the matter I came to report." The mistress clapped slowly, mockingly. "Bravo. 10 barrels. Do try not to faint while telling us. Your color is already off." She bit her lip, gripping the shawl tighter. Tears prickled at the edges of her eyes, but she blinked them back, trembling. "You see," the man near the door said. "She's useless. Nothing but a worry for the town." "Don't listen," the cowboy murmured, quietly, low enough for only her to hear. "They can't touch what you know. Keep speaking. Keep holding yourself." Her voice grew a fraction steadier. "The shipment, what remains, is stored in the back. I counted it myself." "Counted it yourself?" the mistress mocked. "And did you stumble over every barrel too?" Laughter rang again, loud, cruel. I did not stumble," she said, voice firmer now. Her hands tightened around the shawl. "I counted them. 10 barrels missing. That is all." "Pathetic," muttered a woman in the back. "And still so nervous." The cowboy leaned against the wall, arms crossed. No one dared to laugh while he stood there, his quiet presence a shield she clung to. Finally, the clerk banged his gavel. "Enough. Miss Hartley, that will do. Step aside." She exhaled shakily and backed toward the door. The whispers and giggles followed her out into the sunlight. Children's voices trailed behind, calling names she wished she could forget. "You did fine," the cowboy said, voice low and steady. "Not their approval, but your own." Her head dropped, and she allowed herself a small nod. "Thank you." "They'll keep talking," he said. "But you have someplace safe. Come with me." She hesitated, eyes scanning the streets empty of kindness. No coins, no friends, no sanctuary except the quiet figure beside her. The sun dipped lower, turning dust into gold, and the town seemed smaller, meaner, heavier. Can I trust you?" she whispered, uncertain. "You can," he said simply. "I won't let them take more than words." She followed him to the edge of the town, holding the shawl close. Every footstep kicked up dust, marking the path away from humiliation, toward safety, toward the faint glow of hope he offered, without a word. The town hall faded behind her, its windows reflecting the last light of day, and a quiet resolve settled in her chest. Tomorrow, the public event would test her again, but for now, she had a shield, however quiet, however patient, standing beside her. "This is where you'll stay tonight," the cowboy said, gesturing toward the main house as the sun dipped low behind the hills. The sky bled gold and crimson over the wide ranch, horses shifting in the paddock, their soft neighs carrying across the dust. It's so big," she murmured, clutching the shawl around her shoulders. "I didn't expect." "No need to expect," he interrupted gently. Just take it one step at a time. The ranch hands watched her quietly, leaning on shovels and pitchforks. She's the one from town? One asked, skepticism in his tone. Yes, the cowboy said. Treat her like everyone else. Work first, questions later. She nodded, feeling the weight of their stares, but determined to follow. What should I do first? Feed the horses, he replied, pointing to the stables. The wooden doors creaked as she opened them, inhaling the scent of hay and leather. A chestnut mare lifted her head, nuzzling her palm. You're gentle, she said softly. At least someone here is. Gentle hands make steady work, he replied, brushing past to carry a bucket of feed. Start there. I'll be nearby. She scattered grain in the trough, wincing as a clumsy kick sent a bit of it flying. Sorry, she murmured. I don't want to make a mess. You're doing fine, he said quietly. Messes happen. You learn from them. By the time she finished, sweat clung to her hair and dust coated her boots. Is this enough? She asked, glancing at him. He nodded. Enough for tonight. Rest of it can wait until morning. He led her to the garden, where rows of vegetables caught the last light. Pull a few weeds. Helps clear your mind. I've never done this before, she admitted, hands tugging at stubborn roots. Neither had I once, he said. We all start somewhere. The important part is showing up. As she worked, he moved silently, fixing a fence post and checking on the horses without saying much. His presence alone gave her courage to continue, small victories stacking with each chore completed. Dinner's ready, one of the ranch hands called. Beans and bread. She hesitated, then followed the smells to the table. Lanterns flickered against the wooden beams, casting a warm glow. The cowboy placed a cup of tea before her. For you, he said softly. Thank you, she whispered, warmth spreading through her chest. You're welcome, he replied, eyes meeting hers for a brief moment before returning to his meal. The simplicity of the gesture, the steadiness of his gaze, made her shoulders relax. Later, she carried a bucket of water to the barn, the night cool against her skin. Stars glimmered overhead, the air thick with the scent of hay and horses. She paused, leaning against the wooden post, listening to the quiet rhythm of the ranch. You handled the work well today, the cowboy said from the doorway, voice low. Don't be hard on yourself. I thank you, she said again. It's different here. Less cruel than town. That's the point, he said. Places don't make you feel safe. People do. Or sometimes just one person. She nodded, glancing at the lanterns flickering against the walls, the shadows stretching like silent watchers. I hope it stays like this. Even for a little while. It will, he said. For now. Night fell fully. She settled into the small room provided, the blanket he draped over her shoulders still warm. A small cup of tea steamed on the table, the aroma comforting. Her hands shook slightly, not from fear, but from the unfamiliar calm. Outside, coyotes howled in the distance, and the horses shifted in their stalls. The ranch was alive, but quiet, safe enough for her to breathe. She sat by the window, looking at the darkening horizon, dust still clinging to her hair, and whispered, Thank you. The cowboy's shadow lingered at the doorway. Rest. Tomorrow will be another day. You'll do more than just survive. She watched him leave, the faint echo of his boots fading into the still night. Her heart, weary from town cruelty, felt a tiny lift, a seed of hope in the dirt-strewn ranch yard. The next morning, the wind carried whispers. Town gossipers had already learned she stayed here, and she felt a chill. Yet the memory of the cowboy's quiet protection, the warmth of tea, the blanket around her shoulders, offered courage she had never known. She adjusted the shawl, stepping outside as the sun rose over the paddocks, dust dancing in the golden light. The ranch felt like a promise. The town would try to follow, to shame, to mock, but here she had safety. And for the first time in years, she could imagine staying. She knelt by the chestnut mare, the bucket of water catching the orange glow of the sunset. Steady now, she murmured, rinsing the hooves. Her hands shook slightly, Not from the cold, but from memories rising unbidden. "You've been quiet today," the cowboy said from the barn doorway, hat in hand. The lantern swung softly, casting long shadows over the dusty beams. I'm just thinking," she replied, eyes focused on the water. "About home. About everything I left behind." "Thinking can be dangerous," he said quietly. "It drags ghosts into the light." She flinched but continued, dipping the rag in the warm water. "They used to laugh at me, my father, my sisters. They'd call me names I can't even repeat. I thought everyone would be like that." "Not everyone," he said. His voice carried the calm certainty of the plains. "Some folks measure you by worth, not ridicule." She swallowed, letting the tears blur into the water. "I didn't know what worth felt like. Not until here." "Here's a start," he said, placing a lantern beside her. Its light flickered across the boards, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. "You don't have to speak about it if you're not ready." I need to," she whispered. "It clogs my chest if I don't." The cowboy nodded, leaning against a post. "Then speak." "They'd mock my hair, my hands, my clothes, everything about me," she said, scrubbing at a hoof. "Even when I try to help, they'd make it seem wrong. I felt small, invisible." "You're not invisible here," he said softly. "Even if they think so, you matter." She glanced up, eyes meeting his for a moment. The warmth of the lantern reflected in his calm gaze, steady as the mountains beyond the paddock. A small voice interrupted. "She's funny when she drops water on herself." The boy, one of the visiting children, giggled, splashing his sister. "I didn't mean," she began, but a smile tugged at her lips. The clumsy laughter of the children felt like sun on frozen ground. "You're learning patience," the cowboy said quietly. "Even from small hands." She dipped the rag again, water running down the mare's legs. "I think I can. Maybe I can start trusting slowly." "You can," he said. "Step by step." Dusty boots, muddy hands, but steady steps. The children ran past, laughing and tumbling over hay bales. "Come on. Watch this," one shouted. She caught herself laughing softly, heart lighter than it had been in years. "You're healing," the cowboy observed, voice low. "Slow, messy, real healing. Don't rush it." A breeze rattled the barn's wooden siding, carrying the faint smell of hay and horses. She inhaled, letting it settle into her lungs, a small comfort in the dimming light. "Tomorrow," she said quietly, "I'll do better at the chores." "I'll try." "No need to promise," he said. "Just keep showing up. That's enough." The sound of hooves and wind filled the barn for a moment, the silence wrapping around her like a blanket. She pressed her hands together, finally releasing the tension that had sat there all day. Footsteps approached outside. She looked up, heart skipping. The figure was unfamiliar, dust swirling around boots, a folded envelope in hand. "Miss Hartley," the stranger called, voice carrying over the paddock. "A letter for you. From town." Her chest tightened. She clutched the lantern closer, light shaking across her fingers. "From town?" "Yes, ma'am," the stranger said. "Said it's urgent." Came through the sheriff's office. The cowboy stepped forward, shadow falling over her. "Take it calmly," he said. "Nothing written can hurt you unless you let it." She nodded, fingers brushing the envelope. The old fear rose, the ghosts of ridicule and cruelty returning like a cold wind. She hesitated, then reached out, the children's laughter still echoing faintly in the barn. "Open it outside," he suggested, guiding her to the door. The sky was now bruised purple, stars faint against the lingering light. Better to face what comes with fresh air than dust and shadows. She stepped into the dusk, heart racing, shawl tight around her shoulders. The envelope felt heavy, heavier than the dust on her boots. Her hands trembled, but she trusted him enough to take the step forward. The ranch, safe and quiet moments ago, now carried the tension of the unknown. Yet somewhere in her chest, a spark of courage lingered, fragile but persistent. She inhaled the cool air, readying herself for whatever the letter contained. The horizon stretched wide, horses shifting in the paddock, lanterns flickering against the barn walls. And for the first time in a long while, she felt the balance of fear and hope, knowing the cowboy stood beside her, a steady presence in the growing night. "Hold the reins steady," the cowboy said, hand brushing hers over the leather. "Relax your shoulders. Breathe with the horse." She nodded, knuckles white, boots digging into the stirrups. I don't know if I can." "You can," he said quietly, voice firm but gentle. "You've handled harder things than this. Remember that." The horse shifted, ears flicking back. She stumbled slightly. "Oh, easy. Lean with it. Don't fight," he said, steadying her with a hand at her waist. "You're not falling. Not while I'm here." Her stomach tightened, but she let herself breathe. I think I understand." "That's it," he said. "Small steps, not giant leaps. Every ride teaches something." She guided the horse along the dusty corral, sweat prickling her temples. "I've never felt like this before," she admitted, voice low. "Able to do something right." "You do plenty right," he replied. "Even if no one notices." The wind swept dust across the paddock. She tightened her grip, reins steady. Thank you." "You're welcome," he said, tipping his hat slightly. "But don't thank me for standing beside you. Thank yourself. You've earned this." A laugh from the barn startled her. "Look at her. She's actually riding," one of the children called, clapping hands. She glanced down, smiling faintly. The horse moved smoother now, her confidence sparking like a quiet flame. Afterward, she carried a worn bucket to water the garden. "This is harder than it looks," she said, brushing dirt from her hands. "You're doing fine," the cowboy said, watching from the porch. "The plants won't die, because you're learning. That's what counts." She filled the bucket, water sloshing against the rim. "I didn't know work could feel like this. Worthwhile." "Worth comes in many forms," he said, voice low, eyes steady. "Not always measured by others. You have it, even when no one sees." Her shoulders relaxed. She let the water pour over the rows of plants, dirt soaking into the earth. Each droplet felt like a small victory, grounding her in something tangible. Night fell, lanterns glowing along the fence posts. She sat on the porch, bucket set beside her, gazing at the stars. "They're so far, yet they shine," she whispered. "Shine for everyone," he said from the rocking chair nearby. "Even folks who've been overlooked." She traced patterns in the dust with her boot. I feel hope. Just a little, but it's there." "That's enough," he said softly. "Small hope can lead to big changes." A breeze rustled the trees, carrying the scent of hay and distant firewood. Her hands rested on the bucket, a symbol of her progress, her small triumphs. "I never had someone to show me this," she said quietly. "You have now," he said. "And you've earned it. Don't let anyone take it away." The wind shifted, and a shadow passed along the fence. She frowned. "Who's that?" "Just the night," he said, though his eyes flicked toward the distant road. "But be careful. Word travels fast." Her heart tightened. "From town?" He nodded slowly. "Some won't like that you're here. They'll plot. Some will whisper. Others might try to humiliate you." She pressed her lips together, holding the bucket closer. "Then I have to face it, I suppose. But I won't do it alone." "You won't," he said, voice calm, almost a promise. "You have what matters most. Courage, skill, and someone who sees your worth." She looked up at the sky, stars glimmering faintly through the darkness. I'm beginning to believe that." "Good," he said, tipping his hat back. "Belief is stronger than fear. Remember that." The barn lanterns swayed in the wind, casting soft shadows across the porch boards. Her hands rested on the bucket again, the cool metal anchoring her to the present. "Tomorrow," she said softly, "I'll try to do even better. For the horses, the plants, for me." "Do it for yourself first," he said. "Everything else comes after." A distant cough echoed from the road, reminding her that the town still watched, still whispered. Yet here, in the quiet of the ranch, dust in the air and lanterns flickering, she felt something unfamiliar but welcome: safety, progress, and the beginnings of trust. She let out a long breath, shoulders relaxing, heart lighter than it had been in years. The cowboy's quiet presence and simple words had lit a small fire inside her. Tomorrow, she would face the world again, stronger and steadier, anchored by the small acts of kindness she had finally allowed herself to accept. Well, look who's hiding out here, a woman called from the edge of the paddock, hands on her hips. Dust swirled around their boots as the group stepped closer, smirking. She's even thinner than they said, a man muttered, arms crossed. Doesn't even fill out her dress properly. Her stomach twisted. She gripped the reins of a grazing horse, voice small. I haven't done anything to. Nothing, the woman interrupted. You're living here, away from town. That's trouble enough. Children ran along the fence shouting, Scarecrow Lady! Scarecrow Lady! Their laughter carried across the paddock. She flinched, stepping back. You hear them, she whispered. Even the children. Ignore them, the cowboy said quietly, his eyes steady. They're loud, but empty. Stay where you are. I can't, she admitted, voice shaking. They make me feel small. Then stand anyway, he said. Small doesn't mean weak. Keep your head up. A townsman stepped closer, lips twisted. Why don't you pack your bags, girl? You don't belong here. The animals, the work, none of it's yours. They're right, she said, voice quivering. I should leave. No, the cowboy said, stepping between her and the group. His shadows stretched across the sunlit ground. She stays. You'll show a little decency, or you leave. That's all there is to it. Decency? One man laughed, leaning on the fence. She's the one who's out of place. Who gave her the right to stay? She's earned it, the cowboy said calmly, voice low but firm. By showing up, working and treating these animals with care. You wouldn't understand. The children mimicked her, pointing and laughing. Watch her trip. Watch her trip. Enough, he called, hand raised. You're old enough to know better and young enough to learn. Stand down. Her chest heaved, fear and relief warring. I didn't want to. I didn't mean to. You didn't mean to what? He asked, voice patient. Feel afraid? That's normal. Afraid doesn't mean powerless. The woman in the group spat in the dirt. Powerless?
She's weak.
Can't even hold her own words. You can hold your own words, the cowboy said. Without me, without them. You have the right to your place here. Don't forget it. She straightened, eyes on the cowboy. I'll stay, she said, voice firmer. The horse shifted under her hand, nudging her shoulder with gentle warmth. Good, he said. Now, let's see if you can walk through this without their approval. One townsman narrowed his eyes. You think your fancy cowboy will save you forever? Watch your back. He doesn't have to save me forever, she said, the first spark of defiance in her voice. Just to stand beside me now. Fair enough, he said calmly, tilting his hat back. But let's be clear. No threats. No cruelty. Leave the girl in peace, or I'll ask you to step off this property. Your choice. The group hesitated. The children paused mid-laugh. Dust swirled in the warm wind, the ranch quiet except for the horses shifting in their stalls. We will go, one woman muttered finally, lips pressed tight. The children tugged at her skirts, half grumbling, half laughing. As they left, she exhaled slowly, hands trembling. I thought I'd have to run. You didn't, he said, voice low. You stood. That counts for more than anything they could say. Her gaze lingered on the road, the departing figures shrinking in the distance. I think I can do this. Stand up, I mean. You can, he said. Courage is like riding. Takes practice, patience, and someone steady beside you. You've got both now. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of hay and lantern smoke. Her shoulders relaxed slightly. The horses nickered, brushing against her hands as if recognizing her triumph. They won't stop, she whispered. The town, they'll keep trying. Perhaps, he admitted. But moral justice exists even if the world resists. You'll see it when you hold your ground. Her chest warmed, the first taste of certainty since she arrived. The sun dipped behind the hills, casting long shadows over the paddocks. Dust glimmered in the golden light, and for the first time, she felt a faint but firm anchor. Protection, steadiness, and the knowledge that someone would not let cruelty take her dignity. She let the reins slide through her fingers, listening to the soft neigh of a mare. The town might whisper and plot, but here, on the wide ranch under the sunset, she could stand. She could breathe. She could exist. She rose at dawn, boots crunching over frost-lined dirt, reins in hand. I think I can manage the morning ride, she said softly, voice steady in the empty paddock. You can, the cowboy replied, adjusting the saddle on her mare. Remember balance. Don't grip too tight. Let the horse carry you. I'll try, she said, settling into the stirrups. The mare shifted under her, tail flicking as the first sun stretched across the horizon. Steady, he reminded, placing a hand lightly on her back. Confidence comes from repetition, not speed. She guided the horse along the trail alone, wind carrying dust against her cheeks. It feels different, she said. Not like before. I'm not as afraid. That's progress, he said quietly, watching her go. Afraid doesn't vanish, but courage grows alongside it. After the ride, she moved to the barn, milking cows with careful hands. I never thought I'd find this calm in work, she said, adjusting the pail. Work grounds you, he said from the doorway, arms crossed. You can't control everything, but you can do right by what's in front of you. She nodded, the rhythmic motion of milking steadying her thoughts. I understand. Later, she mended a fence post, hammer striking nails with careful patience. One day at a time, she murmured. That's what you said. Still true, he replied, leaning against the porch post. Small steps build strength. Every day counts. Children ran past, shouting and laughing, chasing each other across the yard. She smiled faintly, offering encouragement. Careful now. Don't fall. Look at her, one child whispered. She's different. Different how? Another asked. Brave, the first said. She talks to us and doesn't hide. She blushed, lowering her eyes briefly before meeting the cowboy's gaze. I didn't know I could be brave, she admitted softly. You can, he said, voice calm. Bravery isn't loud. It's steady. It's showing up when the world wants you to hide. Evening settled over the ranch, lanterns flickering against the wooden beams. She lit hers with deliberate hands, the soft glow spilling across the porch boards. This feels like me, she said quietly, holding the light instead of hiding. It suits you, he said. Clarity, self-respect. Not given, earned. She looked toward the distant town. I've been scared of them, of what they say, what they think. But I think I can face some of it now. You will, he said. The world doesn't change overnight, but your place in it can. She wandered to the edge of the property, speaking to a neighbor tending a nearby field. Good evening, she said, voice firm. How are the crops this year? The man paused, surprised by her tone. They're growing well. And you? I'm doing well, she said, eyes no longer cast downward. Learning the work here. It's rewarding. Looks like the ranch agrees with you, he said quietly, smiling. She returned inside, tending the garden with practiced hands. The bucket she carried each night now felt like a symbol, grounding her in her accomplishments, her resilience. I've done this, she whispered. I can do other things too. The night deepened. Stars glittered above the hills, wind carrying the scent of hay and earth. She adjusted the lantern, letting the glow reflect off her face, steady and calm. You've changed, the cowboy said softly, leaning in the doorway. Not because I told you to, but because you chose to. Every day, step by step. I feel stronger, she admitted. Not just in work, but in myself. That's the start, he said. Strength isn't loud. It's quiet. It's persistent. You've found that. Her gaze lingered on the horizon, the distant town faintly visible under the starlight. A pang of worry touched her chest. The festival, it's coming. They'll be watching, judging. They will, he admitted. But now you have something they can't touch. Your dignity, your courage. Stand in it, and they'll see it, even if they refuse to say it. I think I can do that, she whispered, hands resting on the lantern. Its light shimmered against her fingers, a quiet affirmation of the woman she was becoming. The wind stirred, ruffling dust along the fence, and the horses nickered softly in the barn. The cowboy's shadow stretched over the porch, a calm presence. She breathed deeply, feeling the weight of fear lighten slightly. The town might come, the whispers might return, but she had learned the rhythm of work, the steadiness of courage, and the quiet warmth of trust. Her hands gripped the lantern firmly, not to hide from the world, but to carry her light through it. Tomorrow, she would face the festival, not as a frightened girl, but as someone who had earned her place, who had begun to trust herself, and the quiet cowboy who had never let her face the world alone. The festival grounds swirled with dust, laughter, and music, colors bright under the noon sun. She stood at the edge of the square, hands clasped tightly, heart hammering. You think you belong here? The mistress called, voice sharp as she stepped forward, eyes scanning the crowd. Dressed like that, thinking you can walk among decent people? The crowd laughed, some pointing, others whispering cruel echoes of past humiliations. I don't want trouble, she whispered, voice barely audible over the noise. You've brought trouble just by showing up, the mistress snapped. Everyone remembers who you are, what you are. Stand aside, before we remind you again. The cowboy moved to her side, quiet but unyielding. She's done nothing to deserve your cruelty, he said, voice low, steady, yet carrying through the square. You speak of dignity, yet you mock it at every turn. Shame on that, not her. Are you defending her? A townsman asked, eyebrows raised. I am, he replied calmly. And if you cannot measure a person by kindness, at least measure them by truth. She has worked, she has risen, she has faced fear where most would have run. That is strength, and it is yours to respect. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some faces reddened, others shifted uneasily under the weight of his words. She's not as weak as you said, a boy whispered nearby, voice trembling. Exactly, he said, voice carrying across the square. Strength isn't loud. Strength stands quietly, even when mocked. Look at her. She swallowed, feet rooted, feeling the tremor of fear ease just slightly. I'm trying, she said softly, voice firming. You are, the cowboy said. And that is all that matters. The mistress huffed, crossing arms. Words don't change truth. Everyone remembers. Remember what? He interrupted gently. That she survived your insults? That she persisted while you sought laughter at another's expense? That is not shame. It is bravery. And it is yours to witness, not to deny. A silence settled over the square, broken only by the wind-stirring dust and the distant clip-clop of hooves. Townsfolk exchanged glances, some ashamed, some reluctant, others uncertain how to respond. She's faced everything, whispered a woman near the stalls. And she stands. Yes, the cowboy said, nodding slightly. And she will continue to stand. Courage doesn't ask permission. The mistress faltered, her voice lower now. You think you can teach us? I do not teach, he said quietly. I remind. Remind that cruelty is measured by the effect it has, and here it has none. Respect is earned. She has earned it. The townspeople murmured again, but the tone had shifted. Laughter no longer rang. Curiosity and a grudging recognition replaced it. She took a shallow breath, eyes flicking toward the crowd, then toward the cowboy. I never knew someone would stand with me, she said softly, voice quivering with emotion. You're never truly alone, he said. Even when the world seems loud with ridicule, One steadfast hand, one steady voice, can show the path. The mistress glared, cheeks flushed, realizing her authority had faltered under quiet moral weight. The crowd's attention had shifted, respect threading through whispers. She began, faltering, then straightened. Her chin lifted, shoulders firm. The lantern of courage she had carried in solitude burned brighter now, reflected in her gaze. See her, the cowboy said softly. She carries herself with the dignity you tried to steal. She is strong. She is right here. And she is human. A few in the crowd nodded, murmuring apologies or simply acknowledging her presence without words. The sense of justice was subtle but tangible, woven into the quiet admiration that had replaced mockery. I can face them, she said, voice firmer now. I can try to stand for myself. You can, he said. And soon you will. Not because anyone forced it, but because you know your worth. You know it, and they will have to see it. The sun dipped slightly, shadows stretching across the square, dust swirling like fine gold. She inhaled deeply, feeling fear and relief mingle, a fragile balance of hope and strength. The cowboy rested a hand lightly on her shoulder. This is the start, he said. The town will test you, but your first victory is here. Quiet, firm, and undeniable. She let the wind brush across her face, lantern light in her chest flickering steady. Moral justice had arrived, subtle yet powerful. For the first time, she understood that protection and dignity could exist, even when the world resisted. The festival continued around them, colors bright, music loud, but her heart beat with the quiet rhythm of newfound courage. Tomorrow would bring the final challenge, the confrontation with the most malicious among them, but today she had already claimed something far greater, the knowledge that she could stand and be seen, with strength and honor intact. The town square smelled of dust, sun-warmed wood, and the faint tang of horse sweat. She stepped onto the worn planks in front of the sheriff's office, shawl draped over her shoulders, boots planted firmly. Lantern light from the porch glinted faintly across her path. "Miss, are you certain you want to speak?" the sheriff asked, voice low, eyes sympathetic. I must, she said, shoulders straightening. It's time. A murmur passed through the gathered townsfolk, eyes shifting uneasily. The mistress from before leaned against the railing, lips pressed tight, fingers tapping with impatience. "You think you can stand here and lecture us?" the mistress sneered. "You're not welcome in this town." "I am welcome," she said, voice quiet but unwavering. "Not because you say so, but because I have lived. I have faced what you tried to throw at me, and I am still here." The cowboy stood behind her, silent, tall and calm, hand resting lightly on the saddle of a nearby horse. His presence was steady, a moral anchor in the swirling tension. Every laugh, every whisper, every cruel look, "I remember," she continued, eyes sweeping the crowd. "You called me weak, a spectacle, someone to mock. And I was afraid. I hid. I cried. But hiding does not make me small. It made me human." The mistress opened her mouth, then closed it again. The townspeople shifted, uneasy under the weight of her words. "This shawl," she said, fingers tightening on the fabric, "was given to me when I could not even stand without shaking. These boots," she lifted one foot slightly, "carried me through dust and mud, over fences and fields, when I had nowhere else to go. This lantern," she held it up, its soft glow reflecting in her eyes, "kept me steady in the darkest nights. All of it is proof. Proof that I endured." A boy in the back whispered, She's brave." "She is," the cowboy said quietly, voice carrying over the murmur. "Bravery is not born from applause. It is forged in quiet persistence, in choosing to rise when the world wants you to fall." The townsfolk exchanged glances. Some flushed red with shame, others lowered their heads. "You," the mistress began, voice faltering. "You, how?" "I am no one to lecture," she said softly, gaze unwavering. "But I can show truth. You laughed at me, and it revealed more about you than me. My worth was never yours to decide. I stand here, not in anger, but in honesty. And that honesty is stronger than any mockery." A silence fell, broken only by the wind stirring dust along the wooden boards. Horses shifted in their stalls, lanterns flickered, and the square held its breath. A townsman whispered, voice low. We didn't realize." "You did," she said. "And now you must. Recognition is the first step to change. You cannot undo what was said or done, but you can acknowledge it. That is the beginning of justice." The mistress stiffened, lips pressed tight, unable to meet her eyes. The crowd shifted, murmuring in hesitant agreement, the weight of her words settling like dust on old beams. "I stand here because someone saw me when the world didn't," she said, glancing at the cowboy. "Someone offered guidance without demanding, support without judgment. That is the measure of humanity." "You've done well," he said, voice quiet, a note of pride in the calm tone. "You've shown strength where it was needed most." She exhaled slowly, lifting her chin. "I am not here for vengeance. I am here for truth. For clarity. For the understanding that kindness and moral courage matter more than cruelty. And I hope, in seeing me stand, you will see yourselves as capable of better." A few heads nodded, some reluctantly, others with quiet shame. The town felt heavier, yet lighter, as if the air itself had shifted under the weight of honesty and endurance. The mistress, finally, looked away, unable to maintain the facade. Her authority had crumbled under quiet moral force and the dignity of the woman she had tried to shame. "You," the sheriff said gently, stepping forward. "You've spoken for more than yourself. This matters." "Thank you." "I thank you," she said, voice softening, eyes sweeping the square one last time. "I do not need applause. I need truth to live freely. And now I have it." The cowboy nodded, hand brushing lightly across her shoulder. "That's enough for today. The rest will follow in time." The lantern in her hand glowed softly, a small beacon against the afternoon sun. Boots planted, shoulders straight, shawl over her arms, she felt the first true light of recognition. Fear had not vanished, but it had been tempered with justice, and with it, hope. She glanced at the townspeople, some still whispering, some silent, others thoughtful. The weight of shame had shifted, a subtle acknowledgement of wrongdoing lingered in the air. For the first time, she felt her dignity restored. Not with fanfare or applause, but with quiet understanding, moral authority, and a newfound trust in herself. The cowboy stepped back, silent and steady, letting her hold the square with her words and her presence. Dust swirled lightly, lantern light flickered across the boards, and the town, finally, was asked to reflect. She exhaled, letting her shoulders relax. Tomorrow would bring small steps toward healing, not spectacle, but the weight of truth carried in each moment she had stood. And that was enough. She stepped off the wagon, boots crunching on the dusty path, sunlight catching the edges of her shawl. She stepped off the wagon. "It feels good to be back," on the dusty path, she said softly. Sunlight catching the edges of her shawl. Familiar scent of hay. "It feels good to be back," leather, she said softly. Missed. Breathing the cowboy in replied, the familiar scent leaning of against the barn doorway. And leather. His eyes held calm pride. The cowboy replied, and leaning against the barn doorway. I feel different, eyes held calm pride, glancing at the horses pawing the ground. Not like before. Different, she said, lighter, glancing at the horses. "You've earned it," he said simply. "Not like before. Every step, every choice. Lighter. That light you carry now, he said simply. Every step, every choice. Approaching a chestnut mare. That light you carry now, morning feed," she asked. She smiled, voice steady, warm. Approaching a chestnut mare. The cowboy nodded. "Morning feed. They're hungry." Voice and you're stronger than you realize. The cowboy nodded. "Stronger than I was yesterday." "They're hungry," she teased and lightly, stronger than you realize. The mare's mane. "Stronger than I was yesterday," a year ago, he said. She teased lightly. His voice was calm, brushing the mare's mane. "Carrying the weight of truth stronger than you were a year ago," he said. Children's laughter rang from the far end of the yard, carrying the weight of truth chasing each other around a fenced pasture. Children's laughter rang from the far end of the yard, watching them tumble and call out, chasing each other around a fenced pasture. That life can be simple. Watching them tumble and call out. "It can," he agreed. "They remind me and that life can be simple." They
she
learn what
murmured.
you've learned,
It
too.
can, he agreed.
How to stand
And
with dignity.
kindness passes on.
She knelt to adjust
They
the
learn
feed
what you've
bucket.
learned, too.
Hand steady now,
How to
where
stand
before
with
they trembled.
dignity.
I remember
She knelt to
when
adjust
I thought
the feed
I'd
bucket.
never find a
Hand
place
steady now,
never be
where
able to
before they
speak without
trembled.
fear.
I
she
remember
said.
when I
Now
thought
it
I'd
feels
never find a
natural.
place, never
You're
be able
allowed
to
to
speak
feel
without
that, he
fear,
said,
she
voice
said.
low.
Now
Courage
it feels
isn't about
natural.
perfection.
It's
You're
about
allowed to
showing
feel
up
that, he said,
day after
voice
day.
low.
I didn't
Courage isn't
understand
about
that
perfection,
before,
she admitted.
It's about showing
standing
up
to glance
day
at the
after
horizon.
day.
Dust
I didn't
swirled
understand that
lightly,
before, she
settling
admitted,
over fences
standing
and
to
barn
glance
walls.
at the horizon.
I thought
Dust
courage meant
swirled
being
lightly,
unafraid, settling
but
over
it's
fences
this,
and barn
choosing
walls.
to be present.
I thought
despite
courage
fear.
meant being unafraid.
That's exactly
but
it,
it's
he
this.
said.
And
choosing to
you're
be present
in
despite
every way
fear.
that counts.
That's exactly it,
She
he
lit the
said.
lantern hanging
And
near the
you're
barn
present
door. In
the
every
soft
way that
glow
counts.
reflecting in her eyes.
She lit the
It's
lantern
peaceful,
hanging near the
she
barn
said.
door.
Not
The
just the
soft
ranch,
glow
but
reflecting
me.
in her eyes.
He nodded,
It's peaceful,
stepping closer.
she said.
It takes
Not
time.
just the ranch,
You've given
but
yourself
me.
that time.
He nodded,
You've earned
stepping
peace.
closer. And it will
It
last
takes time.
because you've built it.
You've given yourself
The
that
children
time.
ran past.
You've earned peace.
Giggling. And it
One
will last
stopping to
because
offer
you've
her a
built it.
hand.
The
Come
children
play,
ran
they
past.
called.
She
Giggling.
smiled,
One
shaking her
stopping
head.
to offer her a
Not
hand.
yet.
Come
she
play,
said,
they called.
voice gentle.
She smiled.
I have work to
shaking
finish
her
first.
head. Not
Good
yet,
choice,
she
he
said
said
quietly.
voice gentle.
The world rewards
I have work
steadiness.
to finish first.
Good
She
choice,
brushed hay from
he
the
said
horses'
quietly.
backs,
The
adjusted
world
the tack,
rewards
and
steadiness.
checked the water bucket.
She brushed
Each
hay from the
small
horses'
act
backs,
carried weight now,
adjusted the tack,
not as labor
and
to
checked
endure,
the water bucket,
but as proof of
Each
capability.
small act carried
proof
weight
of
now,
trust in herself.
not as labor to
Do you
endure,
ever tire of
but
quiet?
as proof of
She
capability.
asked, looking at
proof
him,
of trust
of
in
standing
herself.
there.
Do
Not
you ever
speaking
tire of
unless
quiet?
it matters?
She asked,
He
looking
smiled
at him.
faintly,
Of standing there,
eyes shaded by
not
his hat.
speaking unless it
Quiet
matters.
is a tool,
He
said.
smiled faintly.
Sometimes the world
eyes
needs to
shaded by
hear
his
less
hat.
noise and more
Quiet is a
action.
tool.
You've
he
learned
said.
that too, haven't
Sometimes
you?
the world
I have,
needs to
she
hear
said.
less noise
A
and more
smile
action.
lifted her face
You've
fully
learned
now.
that too, haven't
I've
you?
learned that words
I have,
matter,
she said.
but courage
a
matters
smile
more.
lifted her face
And
fully
kindness
now.
is
I've
stronger
learned
than
that
cruelty.
words matter.
A
But
soft
courage
wind
matters
stirred,
more.
carrying
And
dust from the
kindness
paddock
is stronger
over the
than
barn.
cruelty. Horses
A
shifted
soft
in their
wind
stalls,
stirred,
tails
carrying
flicking
dust
lazily.
from the paddock over
Lanterns
the barn.
swayed slightly.
Horses shifted in
casting
their stalls,
gentle patterns
tails
on
flicking
wooden boards.
lazily. She
Lanterns
inhaled
swayed
deeply,
slightly,
feeling the
casting
weight
gentle
of the past
patterns
ease.
on wooden boards.
I can't rest
She
now,
inhaled
she said,
deeply,
voice
feeling the
barely
weight
above
of
a
the
whisper.
past ease.
Not because
I
danger
can't
is
rest
gone,
now,
but because
she said,
I know,
voice
I
barely
can
above
face
a
it.
whisper.
And
Not
you
because
will,
danger
he
is
said.
gone, but
Every
because
day, I know,
you will continue to grow.
I can face it.
You've proven that
And
to
you
yourself,
will,
he said.
She leaned
Every
against
day,
the barn post,
you will continue to grow.
gazing at the children
You've
playing,
proven that to
the
yourself.
horses grazing,
She leaned
and
against
the
the
wide
barn
expanse
post,
of sky above.
gazing at the children
It's
playing.
enough, the
she
horses
said softly.
grazing,
The
and the
town,
wide expanse
the shame,
of sky
the
above.
cruelty.
It's
I can
enough,
carry it
she
without
said
letting
softly.
it define me.
The town,
That's
the
life,
shame, the
he
cruelty.
said. Not
I can
perfect,
carry it without
but
letting
steady.
it define me.
You've built it,
That's
and
life,
it will endure.
he said.
Not
Evening
perfect,
settled slowly,
but steady.
Lanterns
You've
flickering
built it,
in warm
and
light.
it will endure.
Dust shimmered in
Evening
the last
settled
rays
slowly.
of sun.
Lanterns
She tended
flickering
the garden
in
one
warm
final
light.
time.
Dust
Her
shimmered
hands
in
firm,
the last rays
her
of sun.
posture confident.
She tended
The
the
ranch,
garden one final
its
time.
fences,
Her
animals,
hands
and
firm,
open sky
her posture
felt
confident.
like home.
The
Not
ranch,
just a shelter,
its
but a
fences,
testament
animals,
to
and open
persistence
sky
and trust.
felt like home.
She glanced at the
Not
cowboy,
just a shelter,
subtle
but a
gratitude
testament
in her
to
eyes.
persistence and
Thank
trust.
you,
She
she
said
glanced
quietly,
at the cowboy,
for everything,
subtle gratitude
for
in her
not
eyes.
letting me face
Thank
the world
you,
alone. She said quietly.
You never did,
for
he replied.
everything. You
For
always
not
had the
letting me
choice to
face
stand
the world alone.
I only reminded you
You
it was
never did,
yours, he replied.
The children
You
ran
always had the
past
choice
again.
to stand.
Laughter
I
echoing
only reminded
across
you
the
it was
yard.
yours.
She smiled.
The children ran
lantern
past
in
again.
hand,
Laughter
feeling a
echoing
calm settle
across the
over
yard.
her chest.
She smiled.
The warmth of the ranch,
lantern in hand,
the quiet
feeling
companionship
a
of the
calm
cowboy,
settle over her
the
chest.
freedom to act
The
with
warmth
dignity.
of the ranch,
All
the
of it
quiet
carried a soft
companionship of the
satisfaction
cowboy,
that
the
words
freedom
could
to act
scarcely
with dignity.
hold.
She
All
let
of
her
it
shoulders
carried a
relax,
soft satisfaction
eyes tracing
that
the horizon,
words could scarcely
and felt
hold.
the life she had
She
rebuilt.
let her shoulders relax,
anchored firmly,
eyes
like
tracing
the
the
ranch's
horizon,
enduring
and
foundations.
felt the life she had rebuilt.
Fear,
Cruelty,
anchored firmly,
and doubt
like
had been
the
replaced
ranch's
by
enduring
steady hope,
foundations.
moral clarity,
Fear,
and
cruelty,
trust. And doubt had been
that was
replaced by
enough.
steady hope. hope, moral clarity, and trust. And that was enough.